As an online business owner, I'm willing to bet that you're incorporating graphic design somewhere in your business. Whether you're creating content for social media, building out your website, designing your branding, or creating digital products to sell, you're exercising that graphic design muscle in one way or another. As an entrepreneur who's been in the online space for over 10 years now, I know two things to be true. Number one, it's more important than ever to have pro-level quality designs to stand out from the crowd. Number two, it can be super disheartening when you feel like you're not a graphic designer and you're a beginner and don't really know how to create those pro-level designs. Which is why I want to make it really easy for you and give you the top 6 graphic design techniques that you can use to make your designs appear more polished, more complex, and more quality. Yes, even if you're just starting out. Trust me, with the methods I'm about to share with you, anyone can do this. Now, there are a lot of great tools out there that you can use to create your designs, but in today's video, I'm going to be using one of my favorites, Kittl. I've got the link in the description box below. If you want to try out Kittl, you can do that totally for free, or you can try out one of their upgraded plans, their Pro or Expert plans, and you can use the code HAZEYT to get 25% off your first month of any of their paid plans, including both those Pro and Expert plans. All right, enough talk, let's jump in. Okay, so I've created my project inside of Kittl, and the first thing I want to talk about is text. It's super important when you're working with text to know a few things that you can do to make it appear up-leveled and more quality. So let's go ahead and click to add some text here. I'm just going to put my name to demonstrate what we're talking about. So when I have my text selected on Kittl, I can come over and first I want to look at the color. So of course, hopefully I have brand colors I'm working with or project colors, but it's super important to think about the background too and what color your text is on top of the background. So you want it to be a high contrast so that your text is easily readable. So if I have a light colored background, I might consider using a darker color text. If I have a dark colored background, I might consider a lighter colored text, but high contrast here is super important to make it readable and clear. Now, of course, with my text, I can always change the font. Kittl has lots of amazing fonts here, so I can choose one that I like and change it to that. There's lots of different things I can adjust here, like the sizing, the spacing, the alignment. So we're not going to go through all of that today, but what I do want to point out is the importance of number 1, shadows, and number 2, the text effects. So if we come down to the text shading section, Kittl's got some good options. So first of all, a drop shadow. Okay, so I changed this to a lighter color so we can see a little bit better what this shadow is going to look like. Let's enlarge this a little bit. So when we've got our drop shadow selected, we can see right now that color is gray, but I can change the actual color of the shadow if I want it to be darker or a different color. And I can change several things about this shadow, like the offset, which is how far away the shadow is appearing from the text. I can change the angle, which is the direction it's coming out from the text. And I can change the blur, which makes it more blurry when I slide this to the right, or if I slide it to the left, it gets a little bit more clear and defined. Now, if I don't want the drop shadow, I also have the option of a line shadow. So if I change this to a line shadow, we can see how it just has these sharp lines that are acting as a shadow. Again, I can change the offset of those, the angle, or I could come over and use a block shadow. So this is just another awesome option for a shadow we have, again, with the same sort of offset and angle options here. Or we could do a detailed 3D shadow, which gives it more of a beveled appearance. So you can see how this added a little bit of an outline on top. So it looks like our words are sort of sinking in the middle there. And I can play around with the colors on this and the outline width to make it larger or smaller. So there's just some amazing ways that you can just easily up-level your text just by adding these really cool shadows. Now, the other thing I want to point out is text decoration or text effects. So if we come down here to the next section down, we've got some really cool decoration effects like horizontal lines, color cut, oblique lines, and fading color cut. So you can see here as we click through how it applies the different decorations to our text. So for instance, let's just take the word Kate here. I'm going to apply this fading color cut and we can see the 2 different colors here. I've got that pink and the gray color. We can always change that around. And then we can change the weight by sliding this to the right or left. If I slide it to the right, it's increasing the space between those lines. If I slide it to the left, it's making those lines thinner and closer together. And I can change the distance from the top as well. I can make that blue color go further up to the top or further down to the bottom. I can change over to this oblique lines to have it coming across the side there, again with the weight options, making those lines thicker, and the distance really changing how this looks by spreading out the color or bringing it closer. I can do just an even color cut, or I can do these horizontal lines as well. So lots of really cool options here, and this is one of my favorite places to play around with this text and see what I can do with this. Now, before we we move on to technique number 2, I want to let you know about a free gift I have for you just for hanging out with me here today, and that is my complete digital product starter guide. So if you're someone who's interested in selling digital products from home, but maybe you don't really know where to start, or maybe you already have a digital products business and just need a guiding hand as you get going, get some traction and momentum in your shop, then definitely grab this guide. It's going to give you everything you need to know to grow a profitable and successful online digital products business. It goes over everything from lots of ideas for different types of digital products you could sell online, to file properties and sizing, aspect ratio, tools and software you can use for different types of digital products, where to source graphic elements from. It's really everything you need to know. So definitely click the link in the description box below to grab that. And let's jump into technique number 2, which is up-leveling your background. So when you're creating a graphic design, it might be tempting just to use a solid color background like this, but I'm going to show you a few ways you can actually make this look a little more quality. And the first one is by changing this solid color to a gradient. So a gradient makes use of multiple colors as opposed to just one solid color. So on Kittl, when you have your color selected, you can come here where it says solid color, and there's a drop-down menu that offers a linear gradient and a radial gradient. So a linear gradient is going to allow you to do multiple colors where it sort of just fades from one into the other. So we can see here we've got this blue color. We can change around these colors a little bit for whatever we want. And we can even make them more or less transparent by using this opacity slider. Now, if we wanted a radial gradient, we could select that, and that's going to take our gradient from one color in the middle out to the edges. So again, we can change around our colors on here until it's exactly the look that we want. Now, another way we can really make our backgrounds look more quality is by using textures. So this is one of my favorite parts on Kittl. We can come over here to our menu and click on textures, and they've got everything from grunge textures, paper textures, plastic, grain, marble. There's just lots of different awesome choices here. Like for instance, in this photocopy texture section, we can click to apply something that makes our design look like a photocopy. They've also got this really cool natural shadows section, so we could do that and have a leaf shadow or something else that we're looking for. So there's just lots of different really cool types of textures you can apply here to make your background a little more interesting. And a third way you can level up your background is by using a pattern. So if you're interested in using a pattern, you can either purchase one and upload it into a tool like Kittl, but you can also find these within Kittl. So if you go to the elements section here on your menu, I just typed in pattern here. You can type it in as specific as you want if there's a specific type of pattern you're looking for, but there's all different kinds of patterns here that Kittl has to offer that you can click and add to your project and just stretch it out to serve as your background. You can also use Kittl's AI image generator by coming to advanced and choosing pattern styles. And you can select from styles like a cute pattern, a wallpaper pattern, artistic, or ink, and then use the AI tool to describe what you want and have it generate that pattern for you. So I might say retro pattern of leaves. Now, of course, I could get more specific with this, but let's just go ahead and generate this and see what it comes up with. So there I've got my AI generated leaf pattern. And if I like this, again, I'm going to stretch this out and use this as my background to layer some things on top of. All right, technique number 3 we're going to talk about is elements. There are all different types of graphic assets and elements you can use in your designs. And on Kittl, we can come down here to our elements section. They've got a whole library of different icons, clip art images, shapes, ornaments, lots of different things we can choose from to use in our designs. But the key here is number 1, we want to choose elements that align with the feel and aesthetic of our brand. So to illustrate this, let's look at this retro vaporwave section. So I could add a little smiley face icon, something like this, to use in my design, which would be a lot different than, let's say, a line art design. So let's look up line art. We can see all of these different really intricate, detailed kind of line art sketches that we could use as an element in our design. So we can see how there's different styles. They're very, very different from each other, but we wouldn't want to choose one that doesn't align with the feel of our brand. So we want everything to be consistent across the board so that people start to recognize what style we use, and that all goes into having a strong brand. Now, in addition to just making sure you're choosing the right style of elements, there are things that you can do in your element editing to also make these look exactly the way you want them to. So let's take this, for instance, we'll work with this element that I have here. And a couple things we can do with this, of course, we can always change the color of the element itself. But we can also add a border and a shadow to this. So let's look at the border. This is going to add a border that we can change the thickness of. Now it's a little bit strange looking on this because of the line art style of this design, but if we had a different style, we could see how that border might make sense for the element. We can also add a shadow here. So remember with our shadow, we're working with the offset, which is the distance away from the element itself, the angle that the shadow is coming off of the element, how blurry or clear that shadow appears, and we can even change the color of the shadow as well. So we can see how just even adding a border or a shadow can really level up this element and take it from something really simple to something more complex and polished looking. Now you might want to use an element that's something like a simple shape if we're trying to layer multiple elements on top of each other. So let's take this circle for instance. And we'll add this photo just as an example of a background. So let's say we have this photo as our background. We've got our circle on top, so we could change the color of this circle to be whatever we like here. And then we can also always use our opacity slider to make that more see-through. So now we can bring it to be a little more transparent so you can see that photo behind. And then we might add something like text on top. Let's just use this one as an example. Remember, we want high contrast. So since we've got sort of a dark colored background with that dark colored circle, we're going to use light colored text. And we can see how this is starting to come together with the use of a photo background, a semi-transparent shape element, and our text. All right, next we're going to talk about using photos. So since we're on the topic of photos, let's go ahead and talk about this as our next design technique and talk about how to really use photos in an effective way. So again, with photos, just like with elements, when we're choosing what photos we're going to use in our designs, we want to make sure that it's aligning with our brand aesthetic and feel. So a photo that has sort of a dark and moody feel is going to be much different than a photo that has a light and airy feel or even a vibrant and colorful feel. So we can come to Kittle's images section to search for photos. So let's just see kind of the difference. If we type in moody flower, we can see the selection here of these flower photos is pretty much across the board, very much dark and moody feeling with those dark tones. Now let's change this to airy flower, and we can see immediately the difference in these photos appearing really light and airy. Now let's type in vibrant flower, and again, a whole different set of really colorful, vibrant images. So these are all images of flowers, but depending on what we want our brand aesthetic to be and the feel that people get when they come to our account or our page or our products, we're going to try to choose some that go along with that. Now we just talked about how you can use a photo for your background, but let's talk about a few other ways that you can use photos in your designs as well. So let's say we're wanting to work with this one, but we're wanting to layer this on top of a different background, and we want to remove the background so that we're just left with the subject of this photo being this beautiful flower. We can select that and come over to AI background remover. And this is going to use AI to actually take off that background so that here all we've got left is this pretty flower. Now sometimes we may need to try a few times. If the AI didn't quite get it right, I think this one did a pretty good job. It's just missing a little bit of the stem. Let's try again with maybe something like this. Let's remove this background. And that did an awesome job with this one. So now I can use this flower and layer this on top of a different background. Now I can always edit this as well with shadows and filters. So if I come to the shadow section, I can add a shadow behind this photo subject. I can change the color of the shadow again with my shadow effects like the offset, the angle, the blur, and even just having something minimal that's not super drastic, but just a little bit of a shadow that's maybe even a little bit of a lighter color does wonders for lifting this up off the page and making it look a little bit more dynamic. Now with photos, I can also use filters. So I can go ahead and change the brightness of the photo, change the contrast, the saturation. There's all different kinds of things I can adjust here when I'm working with photos, vibrance, the hue. So of course, I want to get familiar with using these filters to do some editing to make sure that this is looking exactly the right way I want it to look. And one of my other favorite things I can do with a photo on Kittle is use this image vectorizer. So if I click to vectorize this image, I can choose how many colors I want it to have. Let's say I want it to have 3 colors. I'm going to use this tool to vectorize. And this is changing my actual photographic image into a vector element. So we can see here, it's got my 3 colors, which I can then come in and change around. And this is just another really fun way to create elements or vectors for my designs. All right, next up, we're talking masks and in frames. So let's say I'm wanting to use a photo in a design. I could just use it with the original square or rectangle shape that it's in, but a lot of times it looks a lot more pro level if you use a mask or a frame. So you can come here to the mask section on Kittl and see all of the different shapes. So these are shapes that you can pull a photo into, and the photo will then take on that shape. So for instance, this arch mask could be really cute. I'm going to go ahead and drag my photo over it, and it automatically positions it into the frame, which I can then double click on and move my photo around to place it where I want it inside the mask. Now I've got my photo inside this arch shape, which is so cute. There's so many different styles of masks here, everything from your basic shapes to things like paint splatters, butterflies, stars, paper rips. These are so fun to play around with and really can help to level up both your social media content, your branding assets, your website images, really anything you're working with digitally. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about here is working smarter, not harder, because it can be really tempting to start from scratch every single time we're working on a new project, but there are ways that you can work smarter so that you're saving time, effort, and energy, and you're able to put more into your graphic designs. So one way to do this is with Kittl's new feature, Brand Kit. So we can come over to the Brand Kit option on the side here, and this is where we can actually save things like text styles that we like, our color styles, shadow styles, effects that we like, so that we're not having to recreate those effects and styles every time from scratch, but we can apply them quickly to new projects. So when I go to build a new brand kit, I can go ahead and put in a font that I like. So I might choose new style for my text style. I can choose a font that I know I'm going to want to use over and over again, along with whatever size I want. And then I can name this. So I've already got one that's named heading. Maybe I'll name this heading 2 for an alternate heading option. And I can click add style to the brand kit. So now when I click to add some text, instead of coming over here and changing everything over here in the text editing section, I can come to my brand kit and quickly choose heading 2, and that applies all of my effects that I've saved there. I can do something similar with color styles. So I can click to add a new color style. If I have certain brand colors or project colors I know I'm going to want to work with, I can put in the hex code here or just choose from the colors that are options here. I can give this a name. I can say pink. Add style to brand kit, and now I've got some different colors, so I can easily, instead of having to find the color over here in the editing section, I can come over and choose one of my saved brand colors. I can do a similar thing with shadow styles, text shading styles, text decoration styles, photo filters. So let me show you this text decoration. So again, this is what we were talking about earlier with things like the oblique lines, the color cuts, and maybe I have a specific style that I really like that I know I'm going to want to use over and over again. I can save this as a specific decoration in my brand kit. So I might say color cut 1, add that style to my brand kit. So now when I've got my text selected, I can come over here and apply my color cut with just one click. So this brand kit is an awesome feature. It is available on the Kittl Expert plans. So remember, if you're interested in trying this, you can save 25% off of that plan by clicking that link in the description box below to try it out and inputting the code HAZEYT. So there you go, friends. I hope those techniques were helpful for you in up-leveling your graphic designs, making them more professional and quality. And don't forget to click the links in the description box below to try out Kittl for free and also to grab your digital product starter guide. Happy designing!